how's it going? So today we're gonna get into a pork with green chili sauce. It's gonna be a lower calorie version of the usual recipe, but with the maximum amount of flavor. So let's get to it right away. Okay, YouTube, let's get to it. As always, the exact ingredients and amounts will be in the description, but this is what I will be using. Let me show you. These are all our veggies. Take a look. And I'll be giving you the amounts once you take off the peels, the seeds, all that stuff inside. And we're gonna use all of this that you see here. It's gonna give us a nice green color. And these are all vegetables that have a certain acidity to it. Like the celery, the green tomato, they'll have this nice acid taste and it's gonna bring it out in the pork. We're gonna be using this one. I tried to find the raw, fresh chilies, but I couldn't find any. So I went with this one. This one will be fine. It's a good substitute. They are roasted, and something that I always look for is that when I'm looking at the ingredients, that it has a minimal amount of ingredients. The less ingredients it has, the better. If I could have found one without the salt, I would have done so, but this is just fine. Little Frank's Red Hot. That's a secret weapon. I love it. I put this into anything that I can. And of course, our pork tenderloin. As I've always said before, it's a very low calorie cut, very small amount of fat. It's extremely lean and very delicious. And lastly, in here, I have whole peppercorns. The only reason that I have them whole and I'm not grinding them in my grinder is because my grinder broke. So we're going to be grinding by hand today, and pepper to taste. Let's get to it. Let's start prepping some veggies. And something that I would like for you guys to always keep in mind is food safety. So I'm going to be using this cutting board for my vegetables and for the pork. So it's extremely important that I cut vegetables first, then the meat. You don't want to cross-contaminate. When cooking, it's very important to get very delicious food out, but it is also extremely important that your food does not make you sick or others sick. So always keep food safety in mind when cooking. And just to let you know, this is a lot of ingredients to blend, so I'm going to be blending it little by little, some parts at a time. Such a nice, refreshing looking color. And for the jalapenos, you're more than welcome to de-seed them. I'm just taking the tops off. That'll be fine for me. And I'll be using the whole head of garlic, but I'll put the amount in grams in the description because this was a small head of garlic. So, they vary in size. So as always, I'll put the exact amount of grams in the description. And since we're just blending this, I'm just crushing it so I can take the peel off extremely quickly. Alright, all done. Okay, next let's get the onion ready. Just opening it up so I can get the skin off. And I'll be giving it a rough chop just to make it a little bit quicker on the blender. And as always, I suggest that you cook with the trash can near and open so you can throw skins away as quickly as you can and not make a mess. Just a rough chop. The blender will finish it off for us. All of these ingredients are raw because we're going to be cooking it for a nice period of time, so it'll give it time to cook. Looking good. Next, we're going to open this one up, and I'll be using the whole can for this. Oh, it smells delicious. These are roasted, so this will be the only non-raw ingredient that we're putting in. It's getting a little full. And since it's getting a bit full, I'm going to pour some of it in here for now. Make space for the rest of the can. All done. Let's put it here. It smells incredible. Okay, let's continue. Okay, and just a few more things to finish our sauce. This is 75 grams of Frank's Red Hot. And we're going to be adding all the juice of one orange. We'll also be zesting it, get a little extra flavor out of it. And I'll be zesting the whole orange. Don't forget that you eat with your nose too. First thing you do is you smell it and you see it. This will add some fragrance. And I cut the orange into smaller pieces so I could fit it in here. When you try to juice it by hand, you end up wasting a lot. The orange will just break in your hand. Alrighty, that's it for the salsa. Let's just give it a stir now. Okay, we're all set from here. Let's move on to the next step. Okay, next step, let's get our dry powders together. Then we will cut up our pork. This is a ½ tablespoon measurement, so we're going to be using 1 full tablespoon of cardamom, And I'll be adding this to the pork, not to the salsa. We're gonna use 2 tablespoons of ground mustard and 2 tablespoons of oregano. Alrighty, and now for the protein of the show. Let's cut it open. And for this one, I'm gonna get nice and thicker chunks because they're gonna cook for a while, but I still want them to have a nice bite to them. This is about 2 pounds of pork. Okay, moving on. Our next step will be to give the pork a nice sear. This pan is already ripping hot. I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of oil. Oh yeah, and I have the exhaust on already. Let's get to it. And this pork was cold, so don't worry, the pan will cool down pretty quickly. So let's get a good sear. And if you need to, sear it in batches, which is what I'm gonna do because I don't want to crowd the pan. Yep, and that's it. So I'm gonna let this one go, flip it around, get the next one going, and I'll see you guys after the searing. Okay, so we are on the second batch right now, waiting for the bottom part to sear. Let's take a look. Look at that. So now that we have a nice sear on both sides of both batches, I'm gonna put this back in, get every drop in there, all that porky juice. None gets left behind. Give it a quick stir. And right now, this is just seared meat, no seasoning. Oh, sorry. So now we're gonna go for our first layer of flavor. Let's hit it with a nice fat amount of salt. Stir it around. The freshest ground pepper by hand. Pepper always to taste. I happen to like a lot of pepper. Stir it around. And now we will introduce our first amount of liquid in here. We're gonna start by adding some chicken stock just to deglaze the bottom a little. And this is just half a cup. As always, careful with the steam burns. Alrighty, looking good. Scrape some of the bottom out. Okay, next we add our seasonings. And those powders will totally eat up all that liquid. Mix them in. Give it a smell test. Already smells delicious. And now we're gonna add our salsa. And it was a lot, and we'll be adding all of it, but it will be reducing quite a lot. And then towards the end, maybe like last 30-40 minutes, we will be adding our potatoes. And let's not forget, this is a whole lot of salsa with no seasoning. We'll have to adjust salt a little later. And as it cooks, it'll reduce a lot, and we'll be adding some liquid, reducing, adding some liquid, and going back and forth with that. For now, we have to wait to let it come up to temperature. And I have my heat turned up to the max. So now we wait for a little bit. Okay, so it's been cooking for a few minutes. Now we're gonna crack it open and add some chicken stock. Just a heads up, this thing tends to pop up a lot. So before I open it, I'm gonna lower my heat to the lowest possible setting. Wait a moment. Okay, there we go. There we go, we're gonna have a little bit. We'll be doing that. We'll be adding liquid, letting it reduce, adding liquid, letting it reduce, so the flavors can continue to develop. And you'll notice as it cooks, it starts out as a nice, beautiful, vibrant green sauce, and it starts getting a little deeper in color. That's perfectly normal. Okay, now we're gonna turn the heat back up. Well, first put on the lid. You see, splashes everywhere. So first lid, then heat. We'll come back to it. Okay, so we're about 30 minutes in. Let's give it a quick check. I've lowered the heat. At this point, I've put liquid 2 different times. And you can see it's already looking a lot less thick. It's looking a lot more saucy. It's because all the vegetables have cooked down. All the fibers are broken down through the cooking. It looks good. I'm gonna give it a quick taste for salt. It's pretty spicy, not too spicy, tolerable. I like my food to be spicy, but not where it burns your tongue, or your palate at that. Now I'm gonna add some more liquid. This time a good portion of liquid. And the total amount of liquid that we will be using is 6 cups. Give it a quick stir. And I'd say I have about 2 cups left. I'm probably gonna add that towards the end for the last 30 to 40 minutes when it's time to boil the potatoes in here. And as you can see, it's gone up to here, then it goes down, and I've been refilling the liquid so we get the pork pulled tender. Now we're gonna put the lid back on, raise the heat, and check back in a little later. Alright guys, we have reached the home stretch of this game. The last thing to do is we're going to be adding our potatoes. As always, the exact amount's in the description, and the only thing I did with these potatoes was give them a quick rinse because we have a lot of earthy flavors here, but we do not want to add dirt. So like I said before, you can see this is bubbling away. First, we're going to turn down heat. Once the heat is lowered, let's wait for the bubbles to go down a little bit. There we go. And as you can see, it's reduced some. You can see the little ring mark that was here. So this looks maybe like 1 inch that it's reduced. reduced. And the rest of the way, we're gonna cook with lid off. Actually, before I add the potatoes, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a quick stir and a taste for salt. We need to make sure that the broth is nicely salted, not salty, just salted. So when we put the potatoes in there, they can absorb the salt and the flavor. Extremely hot, make sure you don't burn your tongue. Oh, so delicious, tangy. 1 pinch of salt, spicy came through in the back. All right, here we go. Throw these in. And just to let you know, this has been cooking for 1 hour so far. And at this point, we're gonna cook with the lid off. Let it reduce as much as it can. And at this point, the only timer that we have is the potatoes. When the potatoes are cooked, the meal is ready. And this is a very, how do you say, a very splashy dish. So your kitchen will be a bit of a mess. So you'll have to do some cleaning later, but it will be so worth it when it's done. I'll check in 15 minutes, at 30 minutes, at 45 minutes to see how the potatoes are doing. But like I said, that's the last thing. Once the potatoes are done, we are ready to eat. And one last tip, like I said, I want to cook this with the lid off so it can reduce more, but I'm just gonna put the lid on like this. This will help so it can continue to reduce, but keep the splashing at least, you know, a little bit not so bad. And that's it. Let's allow for the potatoes to cook and check on it later. Okay, it's time for the final check. Now we just need to check the potatoes. Since we have potatoes of different sizes, what I would recommend is that you find the biggest potato and try to cut that one and see how it's doing. And as you can see, this one, that one, you still see the nice sear that we originally got on the pork. So let's see, let's grab a nice potato. This one looks huge. So let's give it a cut. Oh yeah, you can tell. But just to be safe, I gotta give it a taste. Well, it's totally falling apart. Again, it's blazing hot, be careful. Yep, it's creamy. Okay, so I'm gonna use the back of the knife. Oh, you can see that, totally pulls apart. We are set, all good. So now, let's turn up the heat and let's get to plating. I'll see you guys at the table. Hey YouTube, how's it going? So like I mentioned in my last video, there's still construction going on in my home. So this is the last safe space where there's no construction materials. So we're gonna try the food out here in peace and quiet. Okay, let's give it a try. Let's see if the pork pulls apart. It still has a little resistance, which is good, and it's still pulling. Let's keep in mind that we cooked this for 2 hours. 2 hours in, it's shredding, but it still has some bite to it, which is amazing. Super delicious. Quite amazing that 2 hours in, it pulls apart, but it's not completely shredded. It tastes delicious. Should have brought a knife, but I was too hungry. Potato is fully cooked, nice and creamy inside, completely delicious. I love that this sauce is nice and tangy. It gives you some heat. You get the vinegar. It's perfect. I finished it off with some green onions and some fresh cilantro to contrast all those strong flavors, give it some freshness. It's an extremely delicious dish. It's something that you can prepare ahead of time. I made that huge pot and I'll be eating it throughout the week. You know, it's perfect for a family dinner, something you can just put together. It takes a little prep, but then it's easy straight from there. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys give it a try. Give it a like if you do like it, subscribe, and I hope to see you next video. If there's anything you want to see me do, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you, and thanks for chilling with Henny. See you later. How could I forget? Gotta make a taco out of everything. Can't believe I forgot I had tortillas here. Don't worry, I have a massive pot. I'm about to get the taco on. I was just too hungry, too hungry. It's a scientific fact, everything is better in taco form.